players they have. So Caitlin Clark, Chloe Bibby right there on the bench. But then you have Sophie Cunningham, Sid Colson, Ari McDonald, all actually having to sit separate from the bench. You also have Damiris Duntis.
The Indiana Fever's playoff run was supposed to be a celebration. A young team, a new star in Caitlin Clark, and a chance to prove that all the hype wasn't just about one player, it was about a franchise finally coming back to life. But then came the nightmare that no one saw coming. Caitlin Clark's season ended with a groin injury, a gut punch that left the entire league stunned. This wasn't just another name on the injury report. This was the most watched player in women's basketball. The rookie who had dragged Indiana back into relevance, suddenly gone when the games mattered most. And it didn't stop there. Sophie Cunningham, a fiery veteran and one of the team's emotional leaders, was sidelined. Sydney Colson, Chloe Bibby, Ari McDonald, and Dearness Dantas, all out. That's 6 rotation players missing at the exact moment Indiana needed them most.
We got the injured reserves here with you guys, which last month, they just weren't able to travel. What does that mean to you specifically, just having them there?
Yeah, I was super excited. I think just looking at the injured squad in itself, they just have a lot of knowledge. And so for us, just being able to listen to them, taking what they see, because obviously just them watching is going to be a different view than us on that court. And so super, super happy to have them with us.
It left the Fever crippled before the playoffs even truly began. What should have been a chance to make history suddenly looked like an impossible climb. But here's where things get interesting. Fans began asking, was this just a string of bad luck, or was it something deeper? The WNBA's schedule is notoriously brutal. Back-to-back games, constant travel, and physical matchups that wear players down. Some believe the injuries were inevitable under that kind of pressure. Others argue it was the price of relying so heavily on Clark, forcing her into a workload that no rookie should have carried. Either way, one fact was clear. The Fever weren't just fighting opponents anymore, they were fighting their own bodies. And as the roster thinned, the odds stacked higher against them. But even with nearly half their team in street clothes, Indiana wasn't about to wave the white flag.
Obviously, the injured players, they haven't been able to travel, some of them, but most of them are here now. How do they help kind of from a culture-wise and with just bringing some perspective to you guys?
Yeah, we miss them every day on the court. So to be able to have them we had our plane, front of our plane, normally we have empty seats. It was filled on the way here. So, they bring energy, they bring light, they bring their vocal leaders, all of them. So to have them on this trip is huge. And I don't know how we're going to fit everyone on the bench. It's not that long. It's been packed recently. So I'm excited to see how we figure that out, but it'll be great to have them back with us.
When the Fever showed up for their playoff opener, the scene was unlike anything fans expected. All 16 players, injured or not, traveled with the team. On the surface, it looked like unity, a statement that even if they couldn't suit up, every player was still part of the fight. But then came the image that went viral. With so many injuries, the Fever literally didn't have enough chairs. Some players had to sit behind the bench, peeking over the shoulders of their teammates just to watch the game unfold. For fans, it was equal parts inspiring and heartbreaking. Inspiring because it showed how connected this team was. Even sideline stars like Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham were locked in, cheering every play, pointing out mismatches, and talking their teammates through possessions. But heartbreaking, because it exposed just how thin the Fever really were. The WNBA playoffs are a grind, even for the deepest rosters. Indiana was trying to survive with nearly half its rotation gone. And while having all 16 players travel was framed as a symbol of family, it also highlighted the absurdity of the situation. This was a team being forced to battle with scraps against opponents at full strength. Still, that image of Clark leaning forward from the back row, urging her team on, became a rallying point. Fans shared it across social media with captions like, "Even from the sidelines, she's leading," and "The Fever refused to fold." It was clear, Indiana wasn't giving up, no matter how many obstacles got in their way. And when the ball tipped in Game 1, the Fever showed just how far that determination could take them.
Come on, guys. This is my new team, the medical staff. Oh, yeah.
From the opening tip, nobody expected much from Indiana. Missing their superstar and half their rotation, most analysts predicted they'd be lucky to keep it close for a quarter. But the Fever weren't interested in playing the role of underdog. They came out swinging. Kelsey Mitchell set the tone immediately, pushing the pace old-school, attacking the rim and hitting shots that told Atlanta this wasn't going to be a walkover. Right beside her, Aaliyah Boston went to work in the paint, sealing defenders, grabbing rebounds, and setting bruising screens that freed her teammates. The Fever jumped out to an early lead, stunning the Dream and shocking the crowd. For a moment, it felt like a miracle was brewing. Every basket had the Fever bench on its feet. Yes, even the players crammed into the back row, clapping and shouting like they were right in the game. Fans watching at home couldn't believe it. Social media lit up with posts like, "No Caitlin Clark, no problem," and "How are they doing this?" The Fever weren't just surviving, they were dictating the pace. But as every basketball fan knows, hot starts are only half the battle. And when momentum began to shift, it wasn't just Atlanta's players who got involved. It was the referees.
What the referees did, and I know why Stephanie White got a technical foul. Any coach that had to watch their team work so hard all season long, play through every single injuries, and the reason why they had so many injuries is because of these referees.
For a while, the Fever looked like they might actually pull off the impossible. But then the whistle started blowing, and not in their favor.
The referees took it over. Look at this. Everybody saw this. Lexie Hall didn't touch her, but they had to waste their first challenge on this play. Here we go. Look at this. She gets elbowed in the face, and they call a foul on Brianna Turner. And then Lexie Hall turns around to go back on defense, but she gets charged for a foul, and they wanted to upgrade it, reviewed it.
Lexie Hull, who had been playing aggressive defense on Atlanta's wings, suddenly picked up a string of questionable fouls. Aaliyah Boston, the anchor of Indiana's interior, was hit with calls that left even neutral fans scratching their heads. And when Kelsey Mitchell drove to the rim and clearly absorbed contact without a whistle, frustration boiled over. Head coach Stephanie White finally had enough.
Going to get T. It's Stephanie White. She has had enough of what she has seen from the officials here today. Understandable frustration from Stephanie White.
Couple of possessions in a row where Leah Boston got the fouls. I thought the first one should have been on Howard. And then here, as Petty's in there, Tillman kind of tosses her to the side a little bit, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back there.
She voiced her frustration to the officials, and almost instantly the technical foul came. The message was clear. Indiana wasn't going to get any breaks from the referees.
Ryan Howard just falls down, but it's a foul. Like, this is ridiculous. Look at this. Kelsey Mitchell. They don't even let the Fever play defense because she's associated with Caitlin Clark. Look at this one. Another foul where nobody touched him. So they lost the timeout, and they lost their challenges for the game because the referees can't do their job.
Fans online exploded. Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, everywhere you looked, Fever supporters were outraged. Phrases like "robbed by the refs" and "this is embarrassing officiating" trended during the game. Even some analysts hinted at bias, questioning whether the absence of Caitlin Clark, arguably the league's biggest ratings draw, played into how the game was being controlled. Speculation swirled. Was this just a poorly officiated game, or was there more to it? No one could say for sure, but one thing was undeniable. The calls broke Indiana's rhythm, and suddenly, Atlanta had the opening they needed. Still, even with the deck stacked against them, the Fever had players who refused to quit.
Look at this. Boston gets elbowed in the face by Brittany Griner. Do you think they called it? No. And look at this. Lexie Hall did not touch her. Didn't even touch her. And she gets free throws. Here we go. Kelsey Mitchell touched her hip lightly.
Even as the whistles piled up and the momentum swung toward Atlanta, a few Fever players decided they weren't going down quietly.
The game. Atlanta's had a few of those last few possessions. Mitchell, catch, fire, and hit from three. What a start. Rebound hits the floor. Hull keeps it alive for Indiana. Mitchell using the screen, dancing around Griner, and able to squeeze it in off window.
Kelsey Mitchell played the game of her life. She poured in 27 points, a career playoff high, attacking from everywhere on the floor. When Indiana's offense stalled, it was Mitchell who stepped up, knocking down jumpers, slicing through defenders, and keeping the Fever alive with sheer willpower. Right alongside her, Aaliyah Boston battled through foul trouble to make her presence felt. She grabbed 12 rebounds, many of them in traffic, refusing to let Atlanta dominate the paint. Every time she got back on the floor, the Fever looked steadier, tougher, more composed.
Lexie Hull gets thrown out of bounds. No foul, right? Remember that play, okay? Boston, foul. But look at this. So she goes for the ball, and then they call a foul on Lexie Hull. Look at, she says, wow.
Lexie Hull didn't have her best shooting night, but her hustle was impossible to ignore. Diving for loose balls, contesting every shot, staying in the fight even as foul trouble and questionable calls mounted, Hull embodied the resilience this Fever team has shown all season. And that's what made this game so compelling. Even shorthanded, even undermanned, Indiana's core refused to back down. They didn't win the battle on the scoreboard, but they won something just as important: respect. But the Fever weren't just battling their own injuries and the referees. They were also facing an Atlanta team that smelled blood in the water. While Indiana was scrambling to stay alive, the Atlanta Dream looked like a team ready to seize its moment. Rhyne Howard was the spark. She dropped 20 points, attacking the rim with confidence and drilling clutch jumpers when the Fever tried to rally. Every time Indiana clawed back within striking distance, Howard had an answer. But it wasn't just her. Alicia Gray chipped in 16 points, using her veteran savvy to create mismatches and keep the Dream's offense balanced. Then came Tina Charles, the battle-tested vet, who bullied her way to rebounds and easy buckets inside. She wasn't flashy, she was simply effective, and that steadying presence made all the difference. Atlanta also had the one thing Indiana desperately lacked: depth. Off the bench, Ari McDonald and Naz Hillman delivered energy, defense, and timely scoring. When foul trouble sidelined Indiana's stars, Atlanta's rotation stayed strong, fresh, and aggressive. And perhaps most importantly, the Dream never panicked. Even when Indiana went on short runs, even when Mitchell caught fire, Atlanta stayed calm, stuck to its game plan, and trusted its roster. That composure was the real dagger. While Indiana leaned on just a handful of players, Atlanta came at them in waves. And eventually, the Fever couldn't keep up. But the biggest story wasn't just the game itself. It was what this loss meant for Indiana's season, and for Caitlin Clark's future in the WNBA. When the final buzzer sounded, the score told only half the story. Indiana's loss wasn't just another game, it was a symbol of the deeper issues haunting this franchise. For Caitlin Clark, this elimination marked the harshest lesson yet. All season, she carried the weight of sky-high expectations, ticket sales, media coverage, and fan hype. And yet, when the pressure reached its peak, the support around her simply wasn't enough. The Fever's lack of depth was brutally exposed. Outside of Clark and Kelsey Mitchell, there was no consistent third option. Aaliyah Boston showed flashes, but foul trouble and defensive breakdowns took her out of rhythm. Without reliable contributions from the bench, Indiana looked overmatched against a balanced Atlanta squad. But this wasn't just about one night. This game highlighted the long-term challenge, building a roster that can actually compete. The Fever can't rely on Clark to do it all, night after night, and hope for a miracle. If they want to be more than a storyline, they need shooters, defenders, and veterans who can stabilize the floor. For Clark, the loss was also personal. She's no stranger to heartbreak. Her college career ended with back-to-back NCAA championship losses. But this one felt different. It wasn't just her performance at stake. It was her ability to lift an entire franchise. And while critics are already rushing to question her impact, the reality is this: Caitlin Clark has changed the WNBA in ways that can't be measured by one playoff exit. The crowds, the revenue, the national spotlight, Indiana wouldn't have been anywhere near this stage without her. Still, the disappointment lingers. Fans expected a miracle run. Instead, they got a painful reminder that superstardom alone can't fix a broken system. But here's the twist. Sometimes, a loss like this doesn't break a star. It fuels them. And Clark's response to this moment could define the rest of her WNBA career. The Fever season may be over, but Caitlin Clark's story is only beginning. This year was about more than wins and losses. It was about reshaping the WNBA spotlight, testing the limits of one rookie's resilience, and setting the stage for what comes next. Yes, the playoff elimination stings. Yes, the flaws in Indiana's roster were undeniable. But anyone calling this season a failure is missing the bigger picture. Clark carried the Fever into a level of relevance they haven't seen in decades. She sold out arenas, shattered viewership records, and proved that women's basketball can dominate national conversations. The challenge now? Turning all that attention into long-term success. The Fever's front office faces the biggest offseason of its modern history. Can they find the right pieces to surround Clark? Can Aaliyah Boston and Kelsey Mitchell take the next step? Because one thing is clear, Caitlin Clark won't be satisfied with just being the face of the league. She wants to win. And as much as this loss hurts today, fans know what comes after heartbreak. If history is any guide, Clark will come back sharper, hungrier, and more determined than ever. So while this season ends in disappointment, the story of Caitlin Clark is far from finished. In fact, it may have only just begun. Because if there's one thing we've learned, it's this. When Caitlin Clark takes the court, the world is watching.